Hello, good morning. Doing a quick video on these Ranger 570 full sizes and maybe some pointers or things that you can do to help the longevity of them, help you get the most out of them, out of the parts, out of the life of the machine in general, and just some things I've learned along the way with them that might be able to save you some money. This machine's got 1,600 hours on it, over 10,000 miles, and it's reached the point where it's needed some fairly intensive work. It's provided a lot of, a couple years of good service, and it needs some work. It needs some parts. So this is the second prop shaft it's had, and for a couple of reasons, the U-joints will go out first. And what happens when the U-joints go out, the driveline will start to lope. It'll swing all the way over to the one side of the slopped out U-joint, and it will sit there and lope and cause a vibration. And you can see the paint's worn off the one side of this driveline, and that's the side that was loping, slinging out and hitting the skid plate or hitting the dirt and debris or whatever's in the skid plate or under the floor there. If you can, it's best to replace these U-joints when they're starting to go bad. If you can hear them starting to make noise, go down to Napa or wherever, get a Precision P338 U-joint, two of them, put them in, both ends, and get to that before they start to wear on your splines on your yokes. And when these drive lines start to lope, they put a lot of strain on your splines and your input shafts, output shafts, and it will start to wear the splines out. Once you've worn the splines, and you'll be able to grab the drive line and wiggle it up and down, and you'll see the slop. And there is going to be some slop, but you'll notice excessive slop. And once you get to that, you need to put new yokes on, which by the time you buy U-joints and yokes at Polaris, you almost could buy the drive shaft, which is what I did. If you can catch it and just do the U-joints, do that. That's pretty cheap when you buy aftermarket U-joints. But keep an eye on that prop shaft. And then what I like to do, since these do not have an O-ring in the yoke to help hold the grease in, I go ahead and silicone the back side up here to keep the dirt and debris and moisture from getting in there and washing out the grease and putting dirt into there. Keep this yoke greased. But that silicone will help hold the grease in place. And use a good grease. Use a low water washout rated grease, and grease it every time you service. Another issue on these is in the front. Long time issue not only on these but the 800s and 900s. They get a sloppy set of splines going into the front differential, and that's not bad. I just changed the CV assemblies on this to help tighten it up. But what's going on is the splines are getting worn because of all the rust and the dirt and the water that's getting in there. Those are unsealed, so they just plug in and there's nothing to keep the water and dirt out. Just a really poor design. The older models had, the 700s had an O-ring. That made a huge difference. Only thing you can really do is when you pull these apart, and I would suggest doing it yearly or whenever you have the front end apart, pop those CVs out, get some really good, tacky, low water washout rated grease, and stuff as much into that socket as you can where this plugs into, and then go ahead and coat this and plug it in. Make sure it engages, and you can also take an O-ring that fits fairly snugly over these splines and slip it over, and that will help take up any extra room that's there, which is actually what they're doing on these new Texas Edition Rangers. For an extra $4,000 more, you can get heavy duty rear shocks, and you can get some O-rings on your CV shafts to help keep the mud and debris out. But you can go ahead and do that here for just a few cents. So go ahead and do that. That might help you. Another thing to watch is on your primary clutches. Anytime you have the clutch box off, go ahead and blow these out with compressed air. Keep an eye on your buttons and your rollers and your weights. if you're starting to get a lot of slop in there, I would honestly tell you, if you've got 600-700 hours on your machine, your clutch needs rebuilt and probably replaced. Take it off or take it to a dealer or whatever. Either rebuild it, inspect it, or replace it. I've never seen one of these go past about 1,000 hours, especially in dusty conditions, so keep an eye on them. Another area on these to watch is the frame. You're thinking, oh my word, can't really believe the frame's bad. Well, on 3 of these machines, we've had all 3 of them crack at this exact same spot where the frame transitions in the rear into this crappy channel. That weld will crack, and then these will break out across this nice big punch out hole they put in their gusset right where it's welded. Very smart. Not. I mean, you can see that's even loose. What I'm going to do and what I've done is I make a gusset that goes out from here at a 45-degree angle. Tack it in a few places. No long welds, because that's just going to be a place for them to break again. But put some good tacks in. Go ahead and re-weld this, clean it, re-weld it. If this machine can go 1,600 hours and 10,000 miles, your repair job will be the last thing that breaks on it when you're ready to get rid of it. So go ahead and fix that and keep an eye on it. Also keep an eye on the air filters. These are chronic for getting dirty air filters because of where they put the air inlets. There's one on each side, right behind the front wheels, where they get all this nice dust. Isn't that a good place to put that? So every oil change, check the air filter. Either clean it, blow it out carefully, or replace it with new. Keep an eye on that. Otherwise, the powertrain on these, the engine, transmission, front differential, is great comparatively to everything else. You're going to have to put some ball joints and front A-arm bushings in once in a while. This has had its first set, so it's done awfully good. Wheel bearings, you're going to have to put a set of wheel bearings in by 10,000 miles. Those are things that are all common issues with Polaris machines and probably others. But the simplicity of these models and the low cost is pretty outstanding. The CV issues in the front and the prop shaft are the main culprits. Keep an eye on those and your clutches. But otherwise, you can expect some pretty good life if you just take these once a year and give them a good look over, clean them up, grease them up, fix any issues, and you'll have another good year of use with real minimal problems. So if you got any other things to add in the comment section, do that. I'd love to hear if any other issues or tricks or tips you've got to keeping these things running. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and Happy New Year.